decisions that like Rito has made it like over the years that kind of like put us in this current position. So it's bittersweet because it's just like a rebirthing of H&G, especially if they actually do it. If not, then it's not going to be like rebirthing of H&G, and that's going to be more sad. But it still will be a rebirthing because some other game's going to do the type of RTS stuff. Only a matter of time. I mean, if Rito's going to make that on a browser in like 2012, and they kind of finished that in 2013 and started making the actual game with what because I did some research into the engine that they've used. It's actually a free engine you can use. Well, they're using like they're like merging two different types of stuff because they're using stuff that is very old school. Very old school. With that being said, it's like, oh man, I much now better understand that they didn't even have like a Unity type of engine on their hands. They had even more bare bones, which it was still getting updated. Like the actual engine stuff still gets updated, but it's so old school. Like it's for browsers. It's not really to make what we know H&G can be today. You wouldn't really use that engine. I mean, you could, but it's like you would run into the same limitations right now with optimization and everything, and implementing stuff and adding custom stuff. Bittersweet. If regardless if TLM or not. Imagine now what people can make in Unreal 5, and also Unity, and the new other free engines that are out there that are not as old and, I say barbaric, but like old and just like unoptimized and like inefficient as like modern engines are. With like adding stuff, adding what you would want, which is funny because a lot of time where people are transitioning their engines. Space Engineers is making Space Engineers 2, but people don't know if it's actually going to be a separate game or if they're just going to rehaul it. CSGO, they're doing the same thing. They're not making a CSGO 2, they're just rehauling CSGO, but they wanted to say it's CSGO 2 so they get more people buying stuff and all that stuff, and there's more hype, even though it's really not. It's just a few different upgrades and that type of stuff, which is, I mean, still really big. Not only that, Satisfactory is going from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5. That's a huge change. That's coming with their next update. It all relates to what? It relates to everything, just not big ideas that we know that can be made. Everything, not everything, well, yeah, I guess technically everything. Even the AAA studios, they're using their old patchwork engines, which is like the old Rito engine, but in their, like, it's not the same type of barbaric stuff. It's better than the Rito type of stuff, or the stuff that they're using, but it's still the equivalent of like old versus new, and they still have to work with old versus the new stuff that is way more efficient and time-saving. That's all very important because I feel like everybody's realizing that this stuff is like everybody's learned. Oh, I'll just do that. You know, people are learning have learned how to become better devs. Not only that, but like understand how modern games are like forcing everybody to be better devs, which means they gotta learn and do new stuff, which means that they're integrating and doing new stuff. And that's all huge because Rito should have done that way sooner. Like, now understanding like what they were using, they should have done that way sooner. Way sooner. Like, I thought they had more of like a Unity engine. No. It's way barbaric. So it's like, okay, that was so, like, because it's, actually, funny enough, I saw it on Twitter, kind of, I guess, like, a thing that I've never heard about, but it's, like, I guess in the gaming industry, there's a thing where it's, like, don't change your game, or don't, like, swap engines for your game. Like how H&G is made on this, and that is, like, saying don't swap it because you're gonna lose everything. It's like, well, you're working on in the term industry, you're working on you're polishing a turd. So it's like, well, yeah, you could polish that turd and make it look beautiful, but it still could be a turd at the end of the day in comparison to like modern day stuff. And having like, especially just like how kind of barbaric this engine is versus Unreal 5 versus what other people can do with Unreal 5 for making H&G type games, RTS and FPS persistence. It's more of a thing now than ever, especially with like, I mean, anything you can do in this game, you can do in Unreal 5. Anything and more. That type of opportunity of getting something of like H&G is greatly increased. Now we would have gotten our own, we would have still had this H&G if legitimately Rito was like, okay, in I say around 2017, let's go, 2017, the 2016, or 2016, 2017, maybe 2018, they should have swapped engines. Like, they would have kept the game on, but they would have been starting to make H&G2 and Unreal 5. Just like TLM started doing. Like, the exact same thing, they just started doing that sooner, so they understood what they've needed sooner. Even though it had been in Unreal 4, and Unreal 5 wasn't even announced then, and no one even knew about it, it still would have been a baller play. Even in Unity, still would have been a baller play. But that was a huge mistake that in the long term hurt them, but in the short term it helped them because they still made money, they still made all that stuff. So short term, it's like, yeah, but long term, look at them now when they could still be making money. Especially if they did it sooner, they still would, because the game would be online, servers would be online, they're making money because everything's online while making the second game, and it still would all be in Rito. So it's for that, and plus a lot of other stuff too. The unfortunate stuff that we had to experience because of, I think, Bjorns Ego, because it definitely wasn't the developers. I highly doubt it. Well, like Greenbow and Umbra, especially seeing what they've said in that Q&A, like I could tell like they were like the life force, because I remember watching the old Q&As when Red Bjorn and Greenbow, because he was with Greenbow, but I remember watching those live streams on Twitch when they did it in real time and all that type of stuff, and which they did with the other Q&A, but they did so many that so much was ass and like a lot. It wasn't just one live stream, it was a few. So you get to see like more of their personalities and more like how they are and stuff, and Umbra was more like, I say dead, like, or like muted in comparison to like what he was in the new Q&A, or not Umbra, Greenbow? I think, yeah, Greenbow. Which is really good to see, like that, his passion, all that stuff is there. Because if they're going to be making H&G2, they need these people. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this was posted in the Discord by now, because it's past the 30th of April, left TLM, which in his message, which is good, like, heartfelt message and all that type of stuff, which is nice. Well, Heroes of Generals has been a great journey, and I hope that one day I'll get to experience H&G2 as a player and not as an employee. I found a new job in the financial direction, which some of you know that know the direction I studied in, which I've heard about, but again, I don't know if he's like just moving into a different dev group and doing a different type of thing within that group and not just like a community manager thing, which now Umbra is now the community manager. But the reason why that's actually pretty important, because for that, at least I think that little bit there was another bit, I think, on the Kickstarter, which, I mean, well, this isn't really a big thing, but I mean, this is around the time too. This is April 19th. This is for like the Kickstarter, Big High Hopes. We're in the talks of several game publishers and other studios, but no updates on this given time. So this is more with like those two, then it starts painting a more picture of like a questionable future. But the thing is, they haven't officially said anything yet. Then if I go, because it's still not the end of H&G, which I think that's the reason why they're not making, I guess, like a big decision to announce anything. Because another thing to check is that if we go onto their TLM website, the H&G, this is the first page you get onto, and H&G is not on it. But it's on the third one still. But it shows this. And H&G is still in all their stuff and whatnot. And an interesting thing, because here's the thing where it's like, oh, do they not have the money? Well, no, they do, because if we go into job openings, they want a lot. There's a few here, and these are some big boy jobs, and I looked into it. They want some AAA big boys that have at least worked on 3+ AAA projects. That's not cheap. And if they're not going to be paying them expensive stuff, because that's like at least $100 an hour, or like near $75 an hour for those guys, at least. If they're not getting paid like that, then nobody's going to. That's why no one's getting in. I don't know. But that's something, because I didn't see that sooner, so I don't know if that's like been open or what's not. But they got the money for that stuff, so that is they got the money for hiring. So their claim on being able to fund H&G and stuff seems to be legit and solidified. So the potential future of H&G not being made due to financial reasons is not the reason here, because they can 100% do that. They know they can make some money off of that. So now what is going to be, or now what's the deciding factor for them? Is the leadership? Is it like all that stuff, or is it like allowing other developers to develop H&G2, or trying to save as much money as possible and try to use a combination, so like they're paying some but not really paying others, so then they can hire other people, because that's them hiring for their own team. Like TLM has started making their own games, and technically H&G is one of their games. They've published, and it's technically that. But TLM mainly, I guess, stars is in publishing. They want to, get into game development themselves personally. And that's a big thing because what those job hirings are, what we're seeing there for those job hirings is not for other studios, I don't think. It's for them. And that's huge because I wonder if that's a sign for H&G potentially being made. Like, I really wish I checked that out sooner because I don't know if those listings just popped up and that's a sign of them just getting rid of Rito. That's a legit possibility. We have no clue. But with Hades, he let his contract go down. So it seems like he didn't say that they didn't offer a contract, or he didn't reference anything in that way of them not wanting him to be there. It seems like they wanted him to be here, but he just didn't want to be. So with that in mind, that is something where it's like, okay, they are still wanting at least some pieces of Rito. Now, I would really assume, or hope and assume that they would want the developers as well, the ones who can actually make the game and have the experience of that front hand. That's like the best of like all worlds right there. So with that, it's like, okay. Which is interesting because then you see this type of back and forth, right? Of like, okay, yes, but also like maybe no.